morning, friends on the interwebs. I'm Rachael Blaske.
And I'm Julie Ahern.
And today's topic, it's so long. Today's topic is Trapper Keeper at the Ready, convention planning. And Julie and I, veterans of the board game industry, will chat between ourselves. I mean, we've got a lot to say about this topic over a good cup of coffee and discuss this topic that's a super important part of running a board game publishing company, all the while discussing your comments and questions in the live chat because you're invited.
Hi, everyone.
I know.
Okay. This episode is brought to you by Titania Ascending. Queen Titania has united the forces of the Fae to conquer the earthly realm. Ooh. She needs you, her advisors, to plan the attack. In this first of its kind cooperative flip and write game, you'll carefully create your map and then use that map to lead the invasion. Summon your sirens, gather your golems. The earth trembles before Titania Ascending. Coming to Kickstarter this fall from Rattlebox Games and XYZ Game Labs.
That is so cool sounding. Oh, and it was so exciting. I forgot to put up the art. Dude, it is so cool.
Yes.
My God.
It looks incredible. It
and
really
I always
does.
thought it was called Titania.
So turns out there's multiple ways to pronounce it. And Titania would be the American pronunciation, straight American. Titania is how you would say it in England. And I pronounce it with the transatlantic because I
classically
trained in Shakespeare. Did a middle school adaptation where I rewrote the play and directed it. I'm sorry, that's how I roll.
We geek here. We geek hard here.
We geek in so many different realms. So yeah, if you want to pronounce it the way you want to pronounce it, that's cool.
That's excellent. Oh my gosh. So, man, I just want, I'm seeing all of the comments and I miss you all. I love you all. I'm so happy to see you.
Yeah.
Okay. Back to work. We got some news. We got some big news, and I'm kind of bummed because we weren't around last week because technical difficulties, but we got a lot to talk about still.
We do. All right. So I'm going to start with the ones that we were going to talk about, and then I have one little add-on at the end. This is it was industry adjacent happening and kind of coming into our sphere. So it's something to be aware of, especially if you're looking at, for media, different content creators. So OnlyFans has traditionally been a place that sex workers have used as a platform for their clientele. And that's how it became a known thing. Starting as kind of a goof, the tech world talked about how they could become just as popular. And of course, as a goof, started an account. Linus from Tech Talk started an account and, in fact, did. What he discovered and has subsequently talked about is that it works better with less overhead than Patreon. And now, because of that, this CEO, or at least the heads of the company, are trying to clean up their site to make it more accessible to content creators of all kinds. So DJs, video gamers, and now board game reviewers have started talking about it. So I will keep the editorial to a minimum, but I will say this was a haven and a safe space for sex workers, and now they are being pushed out so that, in theory, what people are surmising, and also actually there has been some documentation in email form that they are trying to become publicly traded and only think that that's possible if they can be more reputable. So that is something to consider that might be a bigger conversation in our industry sometime soon, that media folks who talk about wanting to do reviews and get paid for it instead of using Patreon, which takes a lot of the money. OnlyFans gives a lot more percentage-wise, works a lot better for that, which is in a sense good for you, but if it's trying to become a publicly traded company, that probably will be short-lived and also is hurting the people who help make it the company that it is. All right, convention watch.
Conventions. That's what we're going to
Gen
talk about a
Con.
lot today.
The masks are off.
They are, for if you choose.
So the masks are off if you choose. They are. Gen Con has stated that they are going to have a system where if you show that you are vaccinated, you will get one of those bands that you get, like when you go to the club and they're supposed to wear it for the whole time. And then if you have that, you don't have to wear a mask.
So if you don't have that on your wrist, you better have your mask on, and they're going to go around and police all that.
Yep.
Okay, kids.
Yep.
Uh-huh. Sure, this is only coffee. Sure.
Okay. So
all right. And
that's
talk
the thing. I know that there has been conversation with a lot of because we're past the point of, as publishers, being able to roll over our booths to the following year. And it was announced after that deadline. Mm-hmm. And fair warning, Indianapolis has also lifted its mask
mandate
requirements. So I know that a lot of publishers are starting to do some things where what we are going to talk about to their booth design to try to limit the flow of people coming into the booth and out of the booth to fewer people at a time to mitigate some level of closeness. But as we know, if something is airborne, that's so, yeah.
Well, and you
wear your
already,
masks, please.
you are already so far ahead of that trend. Like, you were like, I am going to jump into this apocalypse feel, and everybody's going to be barricaded out already because you're a genius. So,
yeah. I might. Well, yeah. I will talk about my booth plan for this year versus years in the past, which is yes, definitely. I'm embracing the Greenbrier Games apocalypse.
Yes,
now,
exactly. Feel. Well, and I don't know if we even announced this, but like, I'm actually going to be at your booth with you.
I know. I'm so excited.
It's going to be just a party at Greenbrier. It's going to be great. You guys should come see us and stay out of the booth.
Yep. Come look at the games. Come say hi from a safe distance. We love you.
We do.
And then there was one other thing. So in Gamma, as you know, Chris Spivey stepped down. He got a new job, which is great and awesome for him in his personal life, but it also took even more of his time. And so he didn't feel like he could dedicate the time to being on the board. So he stepped down, and Andrew Chesney, who has been a director at large, is now the new vice president. And because the bylaws passed and we are now bringing in not just publishers, the new board member is
Kylie,
who is a retailer. And so
Kylie
Primus is a retailer. So we are going to integrate as people leave the board having the other domains. So I know that several people especially from media, have talked to me about what that's going to look like, how they can be a part of it. And I'm really excited about that, because the fact that you are interested in becoming a member and getting on board with it is super amazing. There was some debate about membership cost. It is $300, but there is also the diversity program is talking about reaching out to if you are from a queer, person of color, disabled population and want to be part of it, please look for the application, because we have set up a fund so that at least for your first year, transitioning people into the Gamma industry and helping them get on board, including financial help, is something that we're looking to do to help increase the people who initially can come in and become a part of Gamma.
Is that Horizons fund that they were talking about? That
correct.
They have $30,000 set aside for that. Awesome.
Yes. And that's, partly for membership, partly for travel costs, things that people, if you're an established publisher, you're like, that's the cost of doing business. But if you're new, that's a big hurdle, especially if you're
Right.
just trying to get into the industry. So the next step is, yes, everybody's welcome. Now, how do we help everybody become welcome? So we're never done. We're never done, but it's a good step. And please stay tuned for more.
You know what I just realized? I made the coolest little 10-second countdown in this new Saved by the Bell like 90s vibe, and I didn't even use it.
Oh no, you should totally do it now.
I should, because everybody, we've got a good group this morning.
Yeah.
And if everybody actually shares, we could probably help a lot of people prep for this next convention. So I'm going to go ahead and have you guys do that. You can please share. Oh my goodness. I am loving this whole vibe, but okay. They have updated in the upper right-hand corner of the chat. If you're watching on this live, you can click the little bell and then you can be notified every time we go live. We also have the link to our YouTube account.
Can I do it? Can I sing it?
Yes.
You can ring my bell. All right, I'm going to stop now.
And you can link to our YouTube account in the description box below and find our archives shows after streaming. And we are talking a little bit about starting to do some YouTube only content. So if you are not subscribed to our YouTube channel, you might miss some things. Especially, I think we were talking about doing like little like convention specific tips, like tips and tricks for Gen Con specifically, tips and tricks specifically for Origin. We've got big plans, people. We got this.
Plans.
All right.
Like, plans.
Whatever.
We got them.
All right. Okay. So now, let me see. Oh, I never took off the news. Cool. We're out of the habit.
I know. A little rusty, but full of joy and summer enjoyment.
Summer. All right. So we are going to talk about planning for a convention. There are incredibly experienced people in this chat that have gone to conventions for years and years. And so if you know tips and tricks as we're talking about these different topics, pop them into the comments so that we can all learn from your wealth of knowledge. Yeah. We're going to do the whole crowd sourcing. But
also, we're joking. We're saying we're rusty at this. We're all rusty at going to conventions in person. So even if it's a group, help each other out, remember all the steps. I feel like this is a useful tool for anybody who's experienced, but also anybody who's new, who's a first timer. And I will say, because of all the changes and because a lot of bigger companies have decided they're not going to go to live conventions, it has opened a window for smaller companies who are new to come into places like Gen Con that haven't. So there is a lot of first timers out there that could use a lot of help. And I know that because I've been the first timer. I've also had several people that I know, like during Loaded at Gen Con, I suddenly get a text being like, how do I do this? I'm like, are you at your booth? You don't know what, okay, let me come over for 5 minutes. Kind of moment. So this is important. These are important things, and you don't want to get stuck mid load in going, wait a minute, I didn't think about this, and this.
And one of my favorite memories of being able to help somebody at a con, I was walking around, didn't have my own booth at the one that I was at, and I got a text, I am dying. Do you have any cough drops in your bag? And I'm like, I got you. I'll be right there.
So I do remember 2 years ago, back when, life was different.
Four times.
My booth at Gen Con, it wasn't, okay, it's not the prettiest. There's definitely booths that have a higher budget. I like my booth, don't get me wrong. But, what we do have, what money I do spend on is 2 layers of foam floor so that when you stand on it versus the concrete, and then an entire arsenal of snacks.
Yes.
So I found that I had a lot of friends who kept coming back to visit over and over, just so they could be like, I need an apple now. Do you have any of that? Like, because I do everything prepackaged because a lot of different allergies.
Right.
So you don't want to like mix peanuts with, like there's a lot of, I'm very conscious of all of that. And I would like to not drop the ball this year on making sure that on Sunday, when I look around my booth, I don't want everybody to look like a zombie. I don't want them to look like they actually have been in an apocalypse. That's my goal.
Yes.
So
I was always happy because we did the mint. We had all of the mint games, and so it was a natural. Here, you've listened to my pitch. Would you like a mint now? And they're like, yes, because I can barely talk as it is. So it was such an easy thing. So, all right. So shall we get to the official? What is your checklist for prep?
Yes, absolutely. So we're going to talk about so that's what we're talking about first?
Well, I mean, that's what we gosh, guys, there's like how many things do we have on here? It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different things to talk about. Let's start at number 1.
So I have so we talk all the time about in general, we talk a lot about reflection.
Mm-hmm.
And making sure that we take time to reflect at the end. So I have over the years, even like usually not the Monday after, but the week after after specifically Gen Con, because it's the first massive one of the year, we do a reflection piece every single year to see what went well, what didn't. And so my checklist is a culmination of that. But again, having to look at it now because there have been many conversations about with COVID, what alterations we're making. But my checklist, I have specifically a packing list, and people listing everything in the comments. Everything is on there of those. So it's what is display and setup, what is for sales, what is for general quality of life. And I have checklists to make sure that, so before anything starts, I look at my previous year's checklist and start revising it. And it's not just, do we have these things? These are the things we needed last time, and do we need them? What do we already have? What exists? This year, it's been a year and a half. Do I even know where to find them? Should I be hunting them down right now? Do I need to purchase them? Am I shipping them? Am I bringing them in person? All of those factors go into it. Is somebody else? Am I pawning some of it off on my new hire, Will Sobel, creative director? Totally excited that he's here.
So much news that we've missed.
So, right. So, how many tables, your basics, how many tables, how many banners, like I said, floor mats for me are an important factor. I am middle-aged. I am not standing on concrete, friends. I'm just not. And even more so having been at home, sitting at a desk, not going to conventions and walking around. So my list also has walking a mile a day to make sure that I don't die when I get to Gen Con. That is part of my list right now.
So true.
But also things like scissors, tape, Band-Aids. So I'll actually just give you my checklist, friends, at the end of this. I'll give you my checklist. And then
downloadable with Julie.
Right. It's just my what I pack. And it is definitely like when you're going camping or something. Like
yes,
all the things. So that's my starting checklist. And then of course you're going to build off of that to many other things that we're going to talk about, but what games are you bringing? What is your price list? Have you compared those to the online prices this year, even more so because you're going to have a lot of people who are not coming to conventions and looking. So are you setting up online sales and are you matching them in person, or are you going to do something else? So do you get an exclusive in person, pins, swag, a bundle deal? Is it different than what you're doing online? And have you planned for that? And have you marketed it? And are you ready to talk about it so that people aren't during the show when you can't mitigate are you going to be sitting there on your phone during a massive show because 5 people have started a whole thread of this isn't fair on your social media? Plan these things in advance. So
Mhm.
that I have that list. I'll send it out.
Is binder clips on your list?
It is.
I
And C-clips.
yes, yes.
What?
C-clamps and
What?
binder clips. Yeah,
Bring it.
come on.
I
Okay,
have
and
5 different kinds of tape in my kit, friends.
I missed
And glue.
you. Okay, so I also have a little bit different spin on this because I'm doing something. I do something a little bit different now with helping organize a con. And so when I think of those kind of kits, I actually have put together kits to be at each station, like the library, registration, info booth, uh, uh, events, and we one of those things is to have a small notebook at each of one of those for a communication book, and that can even work at a publisher booth as you change between volunteers. So, or if you have some sort of a protocol that you want them to follow and you want it to be easy to just step by step by step, this is how you do checkout. This is how you things like that. Okay, so to officially start, since we're 25 minutes in, vendor recruitment is a thing that on the organizing convention side. Uh, I have a small convention. We have like 650 attendees, and so it is
Oh, yeah,
still
so just to frame
yeah,
this,
yeah,
Rachel's going to be talking a little bit more to the when you're putting on a convention, what factors that we as publishers aren't maybe considering.
mhm.
So please proceed.
Yes,
Vendor
yes.
recruitment.
So sorry. So vendor recruitment being, um, you know, d- trying to attract vendors, which obviously that's not an issue with Gen Con. Um, it is trying to, if you were to consider going to a small convention, a regional one to kind of promote your brand, what kind of things would you want in order to make it worth your time? What kind of cost would be reasonable? Things like that. Those are things that I
What are
am
going to entice bigger companies to come
right.
to a smaller regional? And I'm sure I would think like your local, what are the local publishers and vendors?
Exactly.
And then what's going to get somebody who's not local to potentially consider your convention is going to be
Exactly.
tough.
Yeah, so that's kind of where we've been, and trying to make sure that it is an attractive thing for, and we'll quote through on sell-through rates, what past vendors have made, and if it has been worth their time to come. Um, there also, like, I don't want to spend a ton of time on that because it's kind of niche, but just to consider the exhibit hall, because I mean, thinking of location, how many of you are like, where am I going to get put in the hall itself? And so I think that really helps with sales, like just by simple exposure. We try to place people who are going to have interactive booths next to the events area so that they're more likely to do that kind of stuff. And we actually decided to do all of our, since we have a one room convention, we have all of the vendors down the middle and then open gaming on either side. So there's constant exposure so that it's worth it for them to have that space.
Oh, I like that. So that if you want to play a game, but you're going to walk through to play a game on the other side, you're still walking through the vendor area. That's
Yes. And you are usually playing right next to a booth, and you stare at something cool long enough, you might want to pick it up and at least look at it. So that's
fun
really fun.
story. Rec Raiders. My one break at Origins
Yeah.
2 years ago, I had like a 2 hour break on the Sunday, and that was the only time I gave myself a break. And I ended up playing Rec Raiders, and it was earlier in the day, and I sat down to play it right around the corner from the booth.
Mm-hmm.
And like several turns in, I was like, this is amazing. And I was playing with Andrew Wolf,
Mhm.
and he said there were only 3 copies left when we left the booth. So we took I was like,
Move.
gotta go. Ran around the corner, bought the game, sat back down, and was like, okay, keep going.
Yes.
It totally
Yeah.
works. It totally works.
I sat there at BGG-Con in 2019 across from Rahdo's booth with Jen, and you better be sure that I had cool glass meeple earrings by the time I left. You just like when it is staring you in the face.
Right. And
So,
you're also, because you're when you're at a convention, you're in that mentality of
yeah.
this is my fun time that I get to spend my, like people, that's what people are, they're expecting to play, but they also know there are things for sale. So
absolutely.
Maximizing that is great. So
yes.
my first thing that I wanted to talk about was product freighting. So you're talking about setting things up. I'm talking about how, when I get there, am I going to load in my stuff? And several people have talked about that, like added layer of difficulty this year of, am I sending all my product to Gen Con to then shuttle over to Origins, or am I doing 2 costs of freight, especially when the cost of shipping has gone up so much? What are we doing? How am I planning for that? Another factor that a lot of people have to do is, are you shipping overseas? So for us, obviously, Gen Con isn't the one. That would be Essen. But either way, shipping has become an even harder thing. So you should be thinking about that now. Now. So who do you work with? Are you looking for a better price by doing some sort of freight forwarding? That's fine, except that now with all the VAT charges, is there somebody who's going to help you with the getting it, what's the official way to get it into the convention center? Because there are plenty of people who have gotten their products, say from a United States perspective. Me being one of them, for the record, where you've gotten a product to the country and then it is not released because the correct paperwork, the correct taxes were not filed, because you are selling a product in another country. And maybe you're playing Catch Me Roulette. I don't recommend it. Or maybe it just didn't get delivered in time in the right way. So I can tell you that I had an entire new game that was the new release for Essen 3 years ago. Just not, it was there in the city,
and you couldn't have
in a
it?
warehouse being held. Would not be released to us. That was, I know Renegade had same convention. The following year, Renegade had it in their booth, and they weren't allowed to sell it because the paperwork wasn't done properly. And so they could demo the game, but they couldn't sell it. And it was sitting right there, and it was heartbreaking. And having gone through something similar the year previous, I knew, like, it can be super frustrating. So make sure you are thinking about that now. When you get your product to Gen Con, have you planned with Fern of how it's getting loaded in and loading out? That is a factor. If not, are you working with a major logistics partner? We work with QML, and so PSI will all do the shipping, but they won't, there has to be a caravan where they bring things in and declare everything. Have you planned that? Do you know their deadlines? They have sent you emails. I promise you, if you work with a partner already, they have sent you emails. Read the emails. Know what the dates for the deadlines are due. Try not to wing it. From previous experience, it causes a lot of scrambling and sometimes tears.
I've been at a convention where my next door booth neighbor had nothing because their booth didn't show up.
Right.
I mean,
that too.
It's just terrible.
So product freighting is the first thing I think about. I want that lead time.
And
so
next
that
week we're going to
I can talk to my partners so that I know everything that I should have sent is done. I's dotted, T's crossed.
Right. And it's so important. Next week we're going to devote the entire episode to loading. So
party. All right. So moving forward, let's talk about event planning and registration and the execution of those things from the
convention organizer
standpoint.
Yep. Okay. So planning out events from the organizer perspective, I'm constantly thinking of who my audience is, who am I going to bring in, what's going to engage them the most, and how is that going to then increase their enjoyment of the event and hopefully have recurring attendance. So what I've been doing is we always encourage people to put in their own event submissions, but I also go out of my way to recruit lots of learn to plays. I want everyone to come in and have a choice as to what they could be doing at that moment. If they just walk in, it's their first time they've ever been to a tabletop convention, and they are just overwhelmed by all the, like, okay, there's a huge library over here, but I don't know anything about all those games. I don't know what to do next. And then there's all these cool vendors, but now I've walked through that. So now what do I do? And just having all of these different learn to plays and keeping those in like what I call the gateway or gateway plus genre. So like, as ridiculous as it sounds, I want to make sure there's people that are teaching Catan. I want to make sure that there are people who are teaching trails, or so some of these. I think Lords of Waterdeep is one that we have set up. Boss Monster, like all of these things, because we're, as organizers, trying to grow the hobby and bring more people in. Yes.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
I spent a week with small children. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So you have newcomers. So you have actual things that are accessible to them. How are you informing them of the things that are accessible?
Okay. So what we did so far, and we are definitely always trying to get better at our communication, but we have had a huge amount of social media presence. We've had a ton of specific advertising. And then once we're on site, we have a ongoing projector going with the offerings that are happening.
Okay, that's good.
Yes, because it's a smaller event, so it's not like you're in multiple rooms. That we've kind of made it all in an all-in-one to keep everybody together. And then we're going to have tons of signage. We're going to have like a whole wall, because we're going to close. We use the platform tabletop.events, which was owned by the Game Crafter. It was then bought by BGG. And so they are kind of continuing to service that. And they have a really cool digital way to sign up. But once you're on site, everybody knows how spotty internet is in a large hall.
Right.
So in the past, we were encouraging people, hey, if you're sitting at your table playing, go ahead and go on your phone and sign up for a game that could be happening right now. And it's cool. But if that doesn't work out, that didn't work out because people would sign up online, but then also they wanted to just show up and do it if there was a spot. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to actually close event registration right before it starts, and then do manual signups, because it's a small enough event.
So at Metatopia, they have a wall. They just like, it's in the hotel room, and they just tape whatever's of it, like, and yes, that's a lot of paper, but at the same time super effective. And also for the person who's running the event, like, everybody can see. It's very which de-stresses the person running the event, because they can see how many people are signed up at any given time, and that people are coming, or at least they physically they're there on display to be shamed if they don't show up.
Right.
But I was going to say the other thing that I thought that Metatopia did, that is, I haven't heard a lot of conventions do, that I wish more conventions would do, is they have at the beginning of the convention, for the first couple hours, like once an hour, a tour of the convention. So somebody, so one of the volunteers or somebody, you sign up for the tour, and they're like, hi, welcome to this convention. Let me physically walk you through and point out all the areas of things and how to do the things. And if you have any questions, now's the time. I am the person, the human, who can give you any kind of answers. And now you have completed the tour. And if an hour, like for the first 3 hours, so that you can, and I think for new people, and then also if you're new, you now have a group of people that have kind of you've done a tour with.
Built-in game
Yeah.
group.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good. So you hadn't thought of that yet. I helped.
Excellent. Yes, you helped. All right. Walk us through your booth design.
Booth design starts with usually it starts with Jeff doing some sort of 3D schematics on on the STL file programmer where I'm like, what is happening? I'm not gonna lie. You don't have to do that, friends.
Over the top. All right.
You don't have to do that, but he loves it, and so I let him, and then we don't really use it. Here's what you need to know about booth design. The dimensions, you have to know the dimensions of your booth, the dimensions of your banners if you have them, the sizes of your tables, and then you have to, you know what the best thing if you're new is to physically put out a card table with chairs and then push the chairs back so that you can see how much space that table is actually going to take up in your space if you're doing demos at your booth. We are not this year for reasons we've already discussed. Right. We have cafe tables that are stand-up that we can do demos at, and we have events in the event hall if you want to play a full game to sign up for. That's how we are doing that. So if somebody wants to run a game of ours and is willing to expose themselves to the masses, that is very brave of them, and I love them and give them lots of product, and that's all good. But if you're in the booth, you've signed up for not that. You've signed up for a 5-minute, here's how to play, here's the general idea. We're here to sell you things. Mm-hmm. That's what we're here for at the vendor hall booth. So it's a little bit different. So know what you're using your space for. Know the realities of how much space people are going to be in. So how many people do you want in your booth at any given time? This year is different than years previous. And how are you maximizing that versus how much product is going to take up space? Because product is going to take up space. And know the rules, because so you can't show cardboard at Gen Con. It has to be hidden. So everything has to be unpacked that's out in the open. Are you getting a storage space to hide behind? Are you keeping it loaded in a truck somewhere? Do you have a partner that you're working with that has pallets of your stuff off-site, hidden, that gets brought in at the end of the day? Know what you're doing to maximize. If a product is selling well, do you have more to sell? Or are you showing it all at once, and when it's gone, it's gone? Mm-hmm. Know what you're doing. So this year, for example, most years we have a 20 by 20 at Gen Con, and we make a false wall with banners so that we have a space behind it for storage. We have a giant metal vault of holding that's basically a closet, right, that comes shipped to us with all our previous year's banners and a lot of the floor stuff and everything, so that I can put out stuff, take out the old things, put in the new at the end of the show, the new banners and things like that. Set it up, and then once it's empty, because I've now taken out all of the what I want to say, the flooring and display stuff, I can put boxes in there of extra product that are now hidden, and then there's a padlock, so they're safe and easily accessible because the door is on the outside of the booth, but it's locked. Then the rest of the back false wall behind there, I have a table and I can put extra product, but I also use it to store people's stuff, because inevitably everybody who's working at your booth is going to go buy stuff, and they're not going to want to walk back to their hotel before so they're going to have that. All my snacks, all my water, their backpacks, their extra games can all get thrown back there, so they are not taking up space for other people to trip over in your booth. So are you planning for that? Because if you're not planning for that, you're going to have,
planning to fail.
It's going to look like a flea market in your booth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not cute.
So yes, you start in the abstract and you look at it, but be realistic about the measurements and what you can do. Also, the whole thinking that you're, when you're purchasing things, and are you using a phone? Are you paying for the internet? Know that the internet is spotty. Do you have an alternative plan? Is your phone a hotspot? Are you paying for that? Do you have extra battery packs because your phone's going to die very quickly if it's a hotspot? Mm-hmm. Know these things. Those are going to take up space too, and also be kind of looking junky. So do you have something that you can hide all the wires behind when you're like, all of that? is stuff that you have to think through as well.
Man, all the hacks. This is great. I think we could get into that super deep, but the next one that we had to talk about was guest of honor, special guests from the organization point. There's usually some draw, right? Again, we're all about trying to pull an audience, and it is definitely not the gateway audience. Typically, they don't always know who people are, but they may have heard of a game that they've made. They may have heard of. They just have an interest in learning more about people who are in the industry. This is the first year we've done that, because it really, what we are, Great Plains Game Fest is definitely more of a born as a gaming con, and this is the first year we are leaning into a guest of honor, and so Stephen Bonacore is going to be coming up because he's basically nice to me, and
Father of gaming is
I know
as your special guest.
He is. So but I'm making him work really hard. So that's another question. There's a lot of you who have come to conventions as special guests. Like, what are your expectations of that? Like how your time is going to be spent while you're there, and what are you, what is standard? I don't know. There's
so I would like to, having been a guest before.
Yes.
Not often, but it's happened. I don't have a lot of demands. I know that this is because I know how tight budgets are and all of that. It's not that I need. There's no only green M&Ms and anything like that. It's
white orchids in your dressing room.
Right? No. Tell me if my accommodations are taken care of or not, or to what extent. Just let me know in advance, so I'm not caught off guard.
Right.
Tell me what my time expectations are. If you say, well, you're going to do a couple panels, and then they get there, I'm like, also, you're going to be running 15 games. That's not cool. Tell me everything that is expected of me. Yes. And I know that it's chaos and you're trying to plan, but whatever you promise your special guest, stick to it. Even if, as a convention planner, you're like, oh, but we could. No, don't do that. Don't do that after the fact. You tell them, when you come, you're going to do the keynote speaker address. You're going to run these games that you designed. You're going to have a signing period of 2 hours on this day. And then the rest of the time is yours or not. It doesn't, just tell me. Tell me what it is. So that I can plan accordingly and not think that I have time to go to breakfast with my friends that I plan to meet up with there that I never get to see because they're in a remote part of the world and they don't come to big conventions, and I'm so excited and suddenly know I'm running a game. Just tell me. Just tell me. That's my biggest request for convention planners as a special guest. I'm sure there are other people who would like to know more, and I'm sure Stephen Bonacore might have some requests. But
I know, right? so much. Yeah. So I just did all of the things he told me not to do. I was like, so you want to come and, we're going to do this?
You are so lucky I've moved my room around and I don't have the bell of shame out.
Because I was like, wouldn't it be so much fun to go to a winery and play viticulture? And then we could have everybody buy tickets to go do that. And we could do tastings. And then, we could go to a brewery. Hey, wouldn't that be fun?
These are all fun things. Plan them before you tell the kid what the expectations. That's all I'm saying.
I'm learning.
They can all be cool things.
Right.
But if I don't know and I'm like, okay, well, my expectations are these things, and now I have personally made choices that I now have to backtrack. That's hard because, especially if you're the guest of honor and you say, okay, well, I'm going to do this little thing for my fans, and then you have to back out. Then they're like, oh, that Julie, she's a real jerk. She said she was going to do something, and now she's too good for us. Don't put the guest of honor in that position.
No, of course not. So yeah, okay. That's so good. I love hearing both perspectives because I haven't done that before, and this is our first year doing that, and I think that there are so many fun ways to engage. My thought process is, who is my audience? How can I get them to engage and really buy into this convention as a really enjoyable experience? So, oh, dang it. He wants green M&Ms.
I'm sorry. I know. I did the green.
Look what you did.
I did.
All right. Okay. I want to know more about hotel planning from your side, because I've actually never done that part. It's not been my thing.
Oh my God, it's brutal. All right, let's get into that. So each one is different. You've got here's your date, here's your lottery number for what times you can sign up. You're sitting there with your credit card, your company credit card at the ready, refreshing, go. Look, or here, first come, first serve, Wild West it. Or it's a smaller convention and it's as it fills up. So no matter what, hotel planning and travel planning, the earlier you do it, the more choices you have, the more cost effective it's going to be. If you can plan it as soon as humanly possible, please do so. That is hard when you maybe don't know all of your demo team that's going to be there. You're going to have to guesstimate and you're going to have to make do. That is a fact. It's, I have people come and go and drop and new people come in, and and also especially, I'm very mindful of, is this a family? Is this a room with all women? Is this a room with, if I switch that up, is it going to affect how the demographic of that room is? And is everybody okay with that? Am I okay with that? There's a lot. So, for example, Gen Con, you have to have names. It can be the same name or, not in the same room, but like several people, and how, like, so every year at Gen Con, because I fill out 4 people to a room, even if it's only going to be 2 people right now because of COVID.
Right.
Jeffrey Burnham, who is one of my demoers, who has play tested my games since the beginning. I've known him for 12 years. Every year is in every room at Gen Con until because you can change the names and everything after the fact, but when you're booking it, you have to have names. Mm-hmm. Jeffrey gets 5 emails every year for his hotel room, because I'm not sure who's coming yet, but I need to know. I need to book them as soon as possible so that I want a hotel that's adjacent, a shorter walk. There's accessibility through walkways. These are things that are important to me. If you're okay, if you have a team that's, can walk a little bit longer or drive and be more cost effective, if they're okay with that, know what your core team is okay with, and then be very open about it when you're asking for other people to come and help out. Just communicate. I don't think anybody's going to, again, if you're on the demo team and somebody's saying, well, I need the green M&Ms, you could be like, you know what? I wish you well in that endeavor. Right.
Go.
That's probably not somebody that you want working on, and that's a lot. Now, that being said, I am very mindful of making sure people have breaks. People always have snacks. I know everybody's food allergies so that I'm not accidentally harming a human being while trying to feed them or keep them, right. There's always tons of bottled water, which is the only time I buy, because especially right now, again, sanitary wise, I usually have my own water bottle, but I have bottled water at conventions so that it's a quick grab and go, so that you're not just waiting to get to the water fountain. And right now, I don't know if I'd want to use a water fountain, to be honest.
Right.
There's always hand sanitizers. There's always medical supplies. There's always cough drops. There's things like that. But for hotel planning, that's after the fact. I just need the physical who's going to be, how many people am I estimating, and making sure that I have the space for it as quickly as possible.
And it sounds like most of that comes through your email. So always check your email so that you know where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be. And most of the reason for hotel rooms is demo staff. So how do you organize your demo staff in the most effective ways? I mean, you've got to teach them games. You've got to make them feel appreciated. What is standard for even pay at this point? There's
a wide range. There's a wide range, and I'm not going to get into, because there are a lot of people who have very strong feelings about paying versus not paying, hotel room compensation versus not. Every company is going to do it differently. I need whatever you're choosing to do, communicate it effectively so that people can make informed choices. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to pay and not do a hotel room, what is the pay? What are the expected hours? What is your set thing make sure that you're communicating it clearly so that there isn't misinformation or a misunderstanding when they get there. And on Saturday, there are hard feelings.
Right.
That's all, so there is no standard. There are people who feel strongly one way or the other, get paid only hotel compensation, whatever the range, just communicate it effectively.
Oh yeah.
Communicate it effectively before the show. So for us, it depends on it honestly depends on what you're doing. If you're working for the company, if you're not working for the company directly, obviously you're getting paid if you are an employee of the company for your time.
Right.
I also work with Envoy, and they have their own system. So they are handling a piece of that for my events teams as opposed to the demo booth. My biggest factor this year, I'm going to say, is time-wise. If everybody's wearing a mask, my biggest concern is how long can you wear that before you just want to rip it off? And
right.
And so usually I do a morning session and an afternoon session, and it's about it's not the set 5.5 hours, so that there's a little bit of setup time at the beginning before the hall opens, and then a little bit of restocking, cleanup at the end after the hall closes for both, on either end. So usually I just do like one set chunk, and that's your time that day, and you do that for the set number of days. And if you want to trade times, like if you want all of Thursday so that you can have all of Saturday off and somebody's willing to trade with you, you have to tell me, but that's on you to work with the other volunteers to do. But this year, I am also looking at maybe making it a very weird, like 3 hours on, 1 hour off, 2 hours on, 2 hours off, bizarro world, but so that you can get more time where you can go outside and take your mask off.
Right. Well, and in the past year,
I don't know if it's going to work.
In the past year, there's been like schools that would do mask breaks, like 10 minutes an hour, or, something like that. There's a different range of how you can take care of the people that you're responsible for.
Correct. And, so that's another thing I do instead of here's your dedicated, like I have here's your dedicated table and here's your dedicated game. And here's the online, here's an email that's going out when I write it today or this weekend, because it's going out Monday. It's one of the things I've been working on this week. I do a preloaded, here's all of our print and play materials. Here's a link to all of the rule books. Here's a link to my favorite, how is it played, watch it played kind of video for our games, all of them. What game are you signed up for? If it's in stock and not a new item that maybe isn't available yet, here is a physical copy in advance. It is yours to have, to keep, to learn, to love. If it's something that isn't coming out yet, here's the tabletop simulator link to learn how to play it. What is your t-shirt size? Here are your t-shirts, and you're going to get at least 2, because I don't need smelly demoers on Sunday. And you don't want to be the smelly demoer on Sunday.
Right.
So there's certain baked in things that I have, and I have a set, like a wall, kind of like we do. Here's a wall of text that's a lot of information. It's super dense, but at the end of it, your questions coming back to me should be a lot less.
Right. Absolutely.
I like to do it all at once and be like, here is a brick of information, so that you're not going, what am I doing? What's happening when you get to the convention?
Digest it at your own pace. Yep. Now, I'm noticing that you're doing this, it seems like 2 months exactly-ish before Gen Con.
Yes.
So do you have a specific timeline that you reverse engineer off of each convention date to make sure that you have things out at a certain time? Or do you just kind of wing it, or like, okay, this is coming up, I need to get this out?
Most years, no. This year's been weird. But I will say, what is it, 52, 54 is the date when most airlines up their flight prices. And I'm going to be out, so there's certain things like that trigger that I've already, I know, if I'm booking flights, and if I'm booking flights, then the hotel should have already been done. For freight shipping, I want to make sure that I've given at least 3 months lead time. So that's already been, so there's certain things that I've baked in that I do plan. And then there's certain things like, I think Tales of Barbaria will be in stock in time to turn around and ship to Gen Con, but
Mhm.
I'm not sure. So how have I planned around that for if it's for sale or if it's just a demo? Lost Ones. Is it going to be in time, or am I to even be in for a demo? So how much am I air freighting? So, and how am I planning that for demos? And how many of them am I air freighting for demos at the convention that I am then going to turn around and hand off to media to do reviews, because they will be coming and I want those media reviews and how to plays for the actual release of the game. So yes, there's a lot of that I'm planning. That demo team I don't like has already been done, so that by the time the demo team I send stuff out, I have answers for them. Because when they ask me, like when everything first signs up, they're like, well, what games and what, I can't tell you that until I know whether or not the ship is going to actually deliver the game for the newest one.
Right.
But I can give you the information about all the potentials. I can't tell you what you'll specifically be playing yet. So if you're really excited and really need to know, sure, here's a list. But I'd rather wait until 2 months in advance, because I have a much better idea of what we're actually doing in the booth at that point.
So this was the most jam-packed episode ever, and we have a couple top tips at the end, but I wanted to go back because there were so many amazing comments. Like there was two that stood out.
We had more to talk about, but I think we're going to stop because we're at an hour, and we'll do more next week. We like that's why we planned a 3-week, because there's still so much more to talk about.
So much.
So we've got a couple more to talk about even from this week, but we'll carry over.
Right. And so Daryl, he said, wait, no, that's not the one I want. I mean, it's great too, but what is it? 9:50. Here it is. I feel like people will be drained at the end of each day more than ever, because we're not conditioned to be around so many humans in person right now.
Yep.
Like that is one of my biggest thought processes around.
We're going to have to hold each other very gently in our interactions.
Mm-hmm.
Be kind, be patient, be understanding of yourself and other people even more. And it's going to be this weird thing, because it's also going to be like, I'm so excited to see another human. And then the burnout is going to be so hard. So fat, like toddlers when they go to like a birthday party or something where they've, and then nap time doesn't happen, and then there's a meltdown. I feel like that's going to be a lot.
Right. I mean, as a natural extrovert, I go and don't stop at those type of events, but I'm actually planning to allow myself some space, because I just am not used to it. I want to be able to take breaks and withdraw to my hotel room and just have some quiet for a minute, things like that people may or may not typically do. So.
And you had one other?
Yes, Adam, build your booth at home first. It's really easy to underestimate how much space there is.
Totally have done it. Totally ridiculous. But we've totally done it. And yes, while you're doing it, you're like, I hate doing this. Why am I doing this? But then you get to the booth, and with the added pressure of everything else, you're like, oh, but I remember how to do this.
Right.
And then you're like, oh, that's why. Great. That's a great suggestion.
Right.
And especially if you're new.
Then you figure out, wait, 500 units can't fit under a 6-foot table. I mean, try it at home.
I mean, if it's a deck of cards. And you know how many of those we have at Greenbrier Games.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh. So my top tip from the organizer perspective is to simplify to core deadline dates. We, in the past is like, I tend to take something and reverse engineer back, and I want to give everybody as much time as possible. So I end up with all of these dates that are that you have to keep track of. And this year I tried to group them into like 3. So it was like June 1st, July 15th, and July 31st. Those are the and I mean, there's wiggle room obviously, because there's they're not all specific to those dates, but it just makes more sense, and you send less emails, and you just So,
and tied to that, your conventions are sending you this information. And you need to read those.
Check your
so
spam.
That you know what the dates are and what specific things are due on those dates, and have them in.
Yes.
Do it.
Exactly.
You're going to get spammed with a lot of emails, and you're going to want to be tired and not just be like, yeah, I looked at that. Read them.
Yes. It's
Read
so
them.
true. Oh my gosh. All right. We have been busy. It's been summer. Um, and we've had lots of stuff going on. And Julie, last week, I mean, you looked like you had a good week.
I did have a good week. It was lovely. I went to Massachusetts and I saw my family, but I also got to spend on the one hand, I got to visit my parents at their lake house, and that was delightful.
Mhm.
And then I also got to spend time with my team, which I haven't seen in person in a very long time, and work on things in the same room. And that was kind of, and also spend time with their children who think I'm the magical TV lady because they only ever see me on a screen.
Yes.
So it's like I'm like a cartoon, which is kind of exciting.
That's fun.
And that was a picture of Sophie, who was so excited I was coming that she had to call to tell me I was coming.
That's awesome.
So she FaceTimed me to tell me that I was going to be there the next day.
Well, now
And she was really excited that I was going to be there. And we were going to play with Magna Blocks and Play-Doh and what was the other one? There were 3 things, and we did all of them. I got there the next day, and she was like, she had made an agenda, and we followed the agenda. So she's hired when she's ready.
Well done. I mean, that's an organized
100% hired.
kid.
She's 2.5, friends. She's 2.5.
Yep.
She made an agenda and followed through. Just saying. She is hired. She's in that parody stage, and I've learned that I say I'm not mad about it a lot because she picked it up. So I was like, all right, we got to go do this. And she's like, not mad about it. So I was like,
I love it.
So yeah, that was great. This week has been all conventions. Like, I know we're talking about conventions, but it's also fresh in my mind because I came back. I was like, all right, well, that was relaxing. Relaxation over. And that's all we've been doing. So how about you? What have you been up to?
Oh my gosh. I wanted to say the hammock life is the life for me too. That's totally where I go into my zen.
Yeah.
I am pretty much live, eat, breathing this convention organizing right now because it is less than a month away. We are hitting all of those deadlines I was just talking about. And so I've been doing lots of advertising and sending out email blasts and trying to coordinate with vendors that I'm in charge of and submit a whole lot of events so that my audience has fun. And so many things to keep up with. And the most irritating thing that happened is that in the middle of all this, our domain went down. So I've been having to redirect everything because we tried to get it back, and we went through 3 different places that said, I don't own that domain. They own that domain. I don't own that domain. They own that domain. Like 3 different places, and nobody can figure out how to get us GreatPlainsGameFestival.com back. So we've just been trying to redirect through advertising and social media and email blasts back to, and we've been managing to still get lots of badges bought every day. We're at least double ahead of what we were last year because we were the last convention before the pandemic, and now we're the first convention now that it is phasing out. Yeah, Yay. And there's a lot of people are like have a nostalgia to that, so it's kind of cool. So yeah, that's coming up.
So good luck. Good luck, everybody. We'll see you next week where we're going to continue this conversation. And in addition to the few topics that we didn't do, we're going to do how heavy is your book bag? Convention load-in.
So we got to hang out with everybody.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
That's right. And this awesome session was also sponsored by Arcane Wonders.
Arcane Wonders, makers of
for gardens.
or gardens, and many other games. So make sure that you go check them out when you're done here.
And you can always follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Pinterest. And links are all in the description box below.
Enjoy your weekend, my friends. Enjoy it. And remember, next week, you're invited.